go here to our starts of the week.
Let's go.
And then we'll hit our deep shots. Let's go ahead and start it off. We'll go quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. And I'm going to start with Ryan Tannehill against the Minnesota Vikings. Tannehill, believe it or not, he's currently the quarterback 9 on the year through 2 weeks. He's against Minnesota this week, which is a defense that just got blown out by Phillip Rivers, who's currently thrown more interceptions than touchdowns. Sorry for your Colts fandom there. But, you know, if Rivers is putting up numbers on Minnesota, I have no doubt Ryan Tannehill will. The volume has been high for Tannehill so far this year. 43 attempts in week 1, 23 attempts in week 2, and he showed high efficiency, the same efficiency that we saw at the end of last season that we said was not going to stick around. We're still seeing some of that. Definitely not as efficient as they were. Derrick Henry hasn't had any of those explosive games yet. I think he could have one of those here. But we saw 4 touchdowns through the air in week 2 for Tannehill and 0 for Henry. With or without A.J. Brown, I still think Tannehill is a great streaming option and potentially an all-year starter is within his range of outcomes. So if he's out there on your waiver wire, pick him up. He's probably not. But if you're debating him over another option, maybe a guy like Carson Wentz, Ben Roethlisberger, Joe Burrow, plug Ryan Tannehill in there. He's going to give you safety with some upside as well if it turns into, for some reason, a pass-heavy game script. And even through the air, we're seeing breakouts from Jonnu Smith as well. So with A.J. Brown there, that only helps. Ryan Tannehill, start of the week in week 3. Alex, who you got?
Yeah, Steph, I mean, most of the time we agree on these starts of the week. I'll be honest, I don't necessarily agree on Tannehill as, start of the week level hype, but I could see it happening. So I'm not going to rain on your parade, but I'll just go ahead and get into my guy here. And also, by the way, if Tannehill goes off, you have all the right to cram it in my face now that I said that on the pod. But my guy is Matt Stafford against the Arizona Cardinals. I mentioned this game earlier, 55.5 point over-under. This is going to be a high-scoring shootout. I expect the Lions to be keeping up with Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins all game long. And look, Matt Stafford had a really tough draw to start out the season. We liked picking him up late in drafts. If you picked him up, you're probably disappointed. I mean, he had no Kenny Golladay for the first 2 games. We do expect Kenny Golladay to be out there this week, at least as of now, on Thursday afternoon. He hasn't had the easiest schedule. I mean, he had Chicago, then he was at Green Bay. But even through all these issues, he's managed 17 fantasy points per game through the first 2. So if you've been riding it out with Stafford, he hasn't crushed you, but you probably are a little bit disappointed. Leave him out there for one more week, or if he's on waivers and you need a better option, you're looking for that streamer and you didn't get Gardner Minshew or Fitzmagic for Thursday night, go ahead and pick up Matt Stafford. Feel free to roll him out this week against Arizona with confidence. I would not be surprised to see him hit 300 yards and toss a couple touchdowns as well. So Matt Stafford, lock it in, start of the week.
Nice. Let's move over to running backs here. My start of the week, we foreshadowed it a little bit earlier. And, these starts of the week, these aren't supposed to be super chalk options. This is giving our vote of confidence, whether it's maybe a deeper name or a guy in a tougher matchup.
This is a deep one. I thought you could have done this one for deep shots. So this is a big endorsement here as your start of the week.
My start of the week at the running back position is Joshua Kelly, running back for the LA Chargers. And he's up against Carolina, and that Carolina matchup has been so good so far this year. Josh Jacobs had a 3-touchdown week against them in week 1. We saw both Ronald Jones and Fournette have completely startable weeks. Fournette absolutely destroying that defense late in the game once they were a little bit worn out. So you have some of that, thunder and lightning correlation with Rojo and Fournette. We get the same thing now with Eckler and Kelly. I think Kelly can be a desperation RB2 or a flex in a tight spot this week. He had 23 carries in his first game with Justin Herbert. Herbert's still going to be in the game. And when Tyrod Taylor was in the game, we saw zero targets to the running backs position. And when Herbert was in, we saw 6. So right away there, I think Herbert being in, we said it before the season, the best case scenario for Eckler, Keenan Allen, all these pass catchers, Hunter Henry, would be Justin Herbert coming in and taking over the starting role. So we look at that. We had 2 targets going over to Kelly in week 2. I think we're going to see more of the same in a super soft matchup. He's been seeing very high volume in a good matchup. They have a rookie quarterback. That's great. And we love Herbert for the fantasy value for all their pass catchers. But it also means I think the team is going to go with a more run-heavy game plan. They're not going to ask Justin Herbert to do anything crazy in his second start ever in the NFL. So more of the same from Joshua Kelly. And Alex, let me ask you this trivia question. Through 2 weeks, which team has run the most rushing plays in the NFL?
I mean, because we're talking about the Chargers, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say the Chargers.
You are a smart man, absolutely correct. So far, the volume has been incredible for the running back position, and we have seen the Chargers operating at a very high pace of play. We had 18 attempts for Eckler, 20 for Kelly, or 23 for Kelly last week. So I love Joshua Kelly. If you can buy him on the cheap, do it. Definitely do it. He's getting a ton of volume. He's a goal line back. He's the Melvin Gordon role in this backfield. And if anything were to happen to Austin Eckler, Joshua Kelly is a league winner as far as I'm concerned.
Yep. Yeah, Steph, I love the pick. And honestly, anytime you have a start of the week that's only rostered in 60% of leagues, that's a pretty deep start of the week. And look, there's 40% of leagues out there. Maybe it's a home league, a more casual league. People don't know who Josh Kelly is. Go look at your waiver wire, see if he's out there. Even if you've got good backs, scoop him up and put him on your bench, because not only does he have standalone value, but like Steph said, if something were to happen to Austin Eckler, I mean, Josh Kelly is going to be a locked and loaded top 12 running back for the rest of the season. So I love the pick, Steph. With my start of the week at running back, I'm going to go with a bigger name. I mean, you went deep. I'm going a little bit more chalk this week. It's Kenyon Drake against Detroit. It's that same matchup I talked about earlier, has a high over-under.
Nice.
I expect this to be a get-right game for Kenyon Drake. I know he hasn't killed you so far. He's running back 22 through the first 2 weeks, 13 points per game. Very solid as, an RB2 on your roster. But if you were drafting Drake at the end of the first round, early second rounds, you're probably questioning whether the pick was worth it. I'm telling you, leave him in your starting lineup. Don't be trading him to somebody else, because I think this is going to be a definite get-right game for Kenyon Drake against this weak Lions team. Detroit's giving up 200 rushing yards per game through the first 2 weeks of the season. Now, I know it's only 2 weeks, but man, that is a ton. And I expect Kenyon Drake to get out there. I know Chase Edmonds vultured a receiving touchdown from him week 1. And he disappointed last week as well against the Washington football team for your expectations. So to me, I know Drake's probably in your starting lineup, but if he's not, get him in there. And if he is, expect a top 10 week in week 2 for Kenyon Drake.
Love that start of the week there. Love that start of the week. We're talking about bounce backs. Let's move over to wide receivers here, because my first start of the week at the wide receiver position is a guy that I'm expecting a big bounce back from. It's Allen Robinson. We were all over him.
You stole this one from me.
I know we both love A-Rob this week. He's up against the Atlanta Falcons, which they've been, for all intents and purposes, the best matchup for wide receivers, because Atlanta's offense is going to be able to score. Their defense can't stop anybody. It's going to be a boat race type of game script. Whether it's a shootout or even for the Bears, it could be garbage time on the offensive side of the ball with the time running out. It could just be, hey, we're going to throw it up to A-Rob, see what he can do. But Atlanta right now, they're 29th against the pass with matchups against the Seahawks and the Cowboys. Those are both good offenses, but Robinson is too good of a player not to make a splash in this game. I think the bounce back is happening. I'm all over Allen Robinson here in week 3. So bounce backs for Kenyon Drake, bounce backs for A-Rob. Who you got at your wide receiver start of the week?
It's another bounce back guy, Steph. This one's not bouncing back from the first 2 games of this season. This one's bouncing back from 2018 when it was the last time we saw him as an elite wide receiver. It's A.J. Green against the Philadelphia Eagles.
Nice.
And we talked about it earlier this week, Steph, on our other pod, recapping that game between the Bengals and the Browns. The panic meter for A.J. Green is at a 1. He's getting the looks. He has 22 targets through the first 2 weeks of the season, but he only has a 36% catch rate. I think that's a combination of factors. It's Joe Burrow being a rookie quarterback. It's, a weird COVID year with no preseason and limited camp. It's A.J. Green trying to shake the rust off after missing all of last season and missing the whole back half of 2018. So I expect Joe Burrow to continue to build that rapport. I expect A.J. Green to continue to get up to speed. And I think he's finally going to cash in on that connection with Joe Burrow this week. I know the Eagles D isn't necessarily a perfect matchup. It's not one that you're targeting by any means. But I expect this Bengals team to be behind and to need to pass the ball. Their defense is not great. I expect them to give A.J. Green the opportunities here in this one. Burrow is going to have a ton of pass attempts this season, and I expect it this week as well. And I think A.J. Green gets in the end zone this week against the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm really calling my shots here with the touchdowns. I think Stafford's going to toss a couple. I think Drake's going to get in, and I think A.J. Green's going to hit the end zone as well. If you have A.J. Green and you're feeling burned after last week, I hope you didn't sell low, because he's getting the looks, he's getting the volume, and I expect him to have a great week here against Philadelphia in week 3.
Nice. So it looks like we're starting both A.J. Green and Tyler Boyd. But I'll let you finish us off here with our starts of the week. Who you got at tight end in week 3?
Same game here, Steph. Eagles and the
Ooh,
Bengals. We're not going with Zach Ertz. We're going with Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz is the backup to this player, is what I'm saying. I probably could have said that a little bit more elegantly there. I think I botched
it's
it,
happening.
but we're going with Dallas Goddard,
It's
the best
happening.
tight end on the Philadelphia Eagles. Dallas Goddard against the Cincinnati Bengals. Look, first, this is a great matchup. The defense is terrible. I just talked about it when we hit on AJ Green. Like, the Bengals are going to have to score points because their defense is so bad. We saw the Browns do whatever they wanted against this Bengals defense last week. And Dallas Goddard, people don't realize he is a full-time tight end on the Philadelphia Eagles. People think of him as like the backup to Zach Ertz or the handcuff at the tight end position to Zach Ertz. That is not true. Dallas Goddard, even though he is running 2 tight end sets with Ertz, is full time. He's playing 84% of snaps so far this season, top 10 in the NFL, and he's seeing 8.5 targets a game. And I know people might say, okay, it's only 2 games into the season. We can't expect Goddard to keep up that pace for the whole year. But if you look back to 2019, when Ertz was healthy, Dallas Goddard over the last 8 games, one of those was the playoff game, was seeing 8 targets a game. So this is a full-time tight end who's seeing 8 targets a game. You don't get that kind of volume with a ton of tight ends in the NFL these days. He has Carson Wentz throwing him the ball, who I know has been, rough to start the year, but they have no other options, and they're going to be funneling targets to Dallas Goddard and honestly also to Zach Ertz. So if you have Goddard, congratulations, because you basically got Zach Ertz in like the 14th round of your draft. And now with Jalen Reagor being out for, 6 to 8 weeks, that's just another piece gone in this offense. I know he was only seeing a handful of targets per game, but Goddard is going to be relied upon, and I love him in a good matchup against Cincinnati. I think it also could be a bounce-back game for Carson Wentz here against the Bengals. And if that's going to be the case, Dallas Goddard is a smash play.
I love it. I'd be trying to buy Goddard in every league just because you're right, the perceived value, he's seen as a handcuff or a backup to Zach Ertz. That's not the case. And I don't think Zach Ertz is going to get the paycheck that he's looking for after this season with Goddard playing the way that he is. But let me hit my tight end start of the week. We've talked about this matchup a lot. Specifically, you have with a couple of your starts, Matt Stafford, Kenyon Drake. Well, part of your Matt Stafford start of the week plays right to my tight end, TJ Hawkinson, against the Arizona Cardinals. The matchup against the Cardinals was so good last season, 16 fantasy points per game to the tight end position. And so far, the Cardinals defense has actually been relatively decent against the tight end, but they haven't really faced anyone, too good. They had Kittle in week 1. He got hurt, was out of the game. Then after that, they had Logan Thomas and the Washington football team. So they haven't faced, a truly like starter physical specimen that TJ Hawkinson is, that is going to get utilized a lot. The Lions have had TJ Hawkinson in the game on 72% of snaps this season, and that's rising. So he had 63% of snaps in week 1, and that's only gone up with Jesse James. They're getting 0 targets, 0 receptions, and Lions are 11th in terms of pass plays per game. We know Stafford is going to air it out. There's some ambiguity in that running back backfield. It's like Adrian Peterson on the ground, DeAndre Swift through the air. But regardless, TJ Hawkinson has been a great starter. He's been super efficient. He's second on the season so far in yards per target amongst tight ends. And he's caught all 9 of his 9 targets, hasn't dropped a pass all season. Kenny Golladay coming back could cap the upside, but on the other end of the spectrum, that could also give this offense the explosiveness that it is missing. So I'm firing up TJ Hawkinson. Don't let Golladay coming back allow you to look at him as a fade. If you have him, you're starting him. I'm putting him in there over a lot of other tight ends in week 3.
I love the pick, Steph. I think if you drafted Hawkinson late, if you took that late flyer, he's been good for you so far, and I think it's going to continue there against the Arizona Cardinals.
We could be seeing the breakout.
We could be finally seeing the TJ Hawkinson breakout. We're seeing it from Noah Fant already this year, and Hawkinson's actually been really solid. He hasn't quite popped with some of his highlights so far, but the production has been there. So let's look for it to continue here in week 3.